Kathleen Martinez. She is a lawyer from the Dominican Republic who has left her country, her home, and her family to search for Cleopatra. Tell us a little bit about yourself. You studied law, and you're a mother. How did you become interested in archaeology?
I was interested in archaeology since I was a little girl. It's just in Dominican Republic we don't have a tradition in archaeology, and my parents advised me first not to study archaeology but law or a career that I can live with this career after, because he said in archaeology you will never make a career. So try to be more reasonable. And then I studied law as my father at the beginning, and later I decided to study archaeology as a hobby.
From being one of your country's most sought-after criminal attorneys, you switched careers to become an archaeologist in Egypt. Not just that, but you believe you can solve one of archaeology's most enduring mysteries, the whereabouts of Cleopatra. What makes you so sure you'll find it?
Why not? Because, the first thing I did after I studied for 15 years about the life and death of Cleopatra is I searched what kind of person you have to be in order to make the biggest discovery. Because I thought, who were those who make the biggest discoveries? And I realized after I searched in Google, who were they? Howard Carter. He was an archaeologist. He came to Egypt not as an archaeologist. He came as a young boy to draw for a famous archaeologist Petrie. And then he said there is something more interesting that Petrie is searching for. It's the tomb of Tutankhamun. But nobody listened to him because he was nobody in archaeology. And then I realized you don't have to be a special person to achieve your dreams. You just have to believe in yourself. And this is how I decided to follow my dream.
Wow. Well, some, including your own father, don't think too highly of Cleopatra. Some may describe her as merely a political schemer. They say she wasn't that beautiful. Why do you think Cleopatra is so special?
This is a man world. That's why Cleopatra, maybe, in many countries, is not considered as as she really was. For me, after I studied her for so many years, I realized who was she. She was the first woman who studied formally at university at Museum in Alexandria. She had the opportunity to learn 9 languages, all the languages of her time. She was very advanced. She was a woman with a lot of, she was so smart. She has wisdom. She was a real woman. And this is why she didn't want to dress, for example, as a man to rule Egypt. She wanted to dress as a woman and be beside a man. And she wanted also to be a queen, but also to be a mother, which is so important for us. For me, she left. She is a model because she was a woman who has a career. She was a mother. She was a wife. She was a queen. She was a warrior. What else? She was a goddess.
A little bit like you. One of the reasons you admire Cleopatra is because of the way she presented herself to Julius Caesar, wrapped up in a rug. You believe that was pure genius. Why?
Because she had no other way. Nobody ever thought that she could enter the palace. She was, at that time she was 18 years old. She was at the desert running because her sister tried to kill her, and she had to run away from the palace. When Julius Caesar came to Egypt, to Alexandria, she found that maybe if she had the opportunity to talk to him, he can put her back in power, because she was the legitimate heir of Ptolemy the 12th, and she needs somebody to support her. And how could she go back to palace? The only idea she had was that one, and she succeeded, but she risked her life. If somebody catch her, the Romans or the Egyptians, she will be dead in a second, and she risked everything. She was a woman who nothing stopped her, and she just knew it was important for her to meet Julius Caesar.
So she was conniving and crafty. Do you think that's important for a woman to succeed in a man's world?
Sometimes you need to find a way, and she was the only possible way. How could she meet Julius Caesar? What other ways she could have? So she found that way, and she was successful.
You've compared Cleopatra and Mark Antony to Isis and Osiris, two of the most powerful figures in Egyptian mythology. What, if any, are the similarities?
Well, after studying Cleopatra personality and following her steps for 15 years, I realized the way she died using an Egyptian cobra while she was captured already by the Romans who pretend to take her back to Rome to parade her in Rome in the streets and um, maybe dishonor her. She found a way to kill herself, but she didn't want to use the poison only to die. She wanted to be remembered by the Egyptians, and she wants to use the mythology of Osiris and Isis as the way she died and Mark Anthony died. So she took this knowledge she had about their religion and she used the cobra as a symbolism. And Isis was the first one who created with magic a cobra, and she wanted to live in the mind of the Egyptian people, and she was capable to do the same. And she,
As a goddess.
as a goddess, she was the human representation of Isis, and she wanted, at the end of her life, I believe, as a scholar, that she was more afraid of anonymity than death. She was a believer. You know, the Egyptians in ancient time, they were believers, and they care more about afterlife than the present life. And this is why she wanted, for the end of Mark Anthony and herself, to find a proper way for them to rest in peace.
You were so obsessed with finding Cleopatra that you've taken all sorts of risks and made many sacrifices, all because you had a hunch. Some people might think you're nuts. I personally think you're very brave. What sort of challenges did you face?
Well, first, the first challenge was leave the Dominican Republic because, of course, my family didn't want me to leave. They want me to stay. They don't want me to travel to a country that they knew very few about this culture, and they were a little bit afraid. Also, I have my family, I have my kids. It was difficult for me to come to Egypt, but I decided to come at the beginning to see if the project was possible. And I present my project to the Supreme Council of Antiquities. At that time was Dr. Hawaz. And when I explained the project, the idea, and I asked him to search together for Cleopatra, he understood the project. And instead of giving me as a normal license, they gave me only 2 months.
Yes, but you were finally given a chance to prove your theory, and you were given just 2 months. Uh, Tell us why you believe Cleopatra and Mark Antony may be buried in the Tabosiris Magna Temple. Why that particular site?
Because I studied Cleopatra for so many years, and then I realized the way, as I told you, the way she died, it was the beginning of a religious act that will end it with her being buried in a temple. Which one? So I study all the temples around Alexandria, and with all the information we have from ancient writers, I put together all of this information. And for example, I realized that between Mark